early days of Third Eye. How's the process? Did you get a co-packer? How do you formulate? How do you go about starting something like this, which seems so monumental?
This really needs to be cut out. You can cut that out, but can I use a really good example that you should cut out? Marketing, storytelling, all of that is great and that has to do right. But the only thing that will bring people back to your product is product. Because they're consuming it.
So you've got a bottle, or you figured out the whole bottling process. You've got someone to help you to do it for you. What next? Like the whole, who's going to buy this? There was a stat that I read that premiumization, the market share of premium alcohol gone up from I think 42% to 49%. Do you think in terms of absolute, it's compensating for volume? Volumes are reducing but values increasing, or both are increasing? India's becoming sexy.
Yeah, India is becoming sexy.
Yeah.
Indians are becoming
Yeah,
sexy.
Indians are becoming sexy.
Thank you.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah. He literally laughed us out of the room. It was like a 2,500 rupee gin. No one from India, no one's going to drink it.
Namaste, pranam, and welcome to this little conversation that I call Day Zero. It's a conversation with friends, just like any other. But we're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, because I feel like some of the best conversations, some of the best advice is when you're not talking or trying to give advice at all. And it's just when you're having conversation. We're going to take you from Day Zero, Vidur, and we're going to build you up from there.
Awesome.
I just want to preface that I know Vidur because my sister and I co-founded Sattva Ventures, and we're a small investor in Third Eye Distillery. And it's been a great journey of knowing you so far. And I would love to, share that with, the rest of the world.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Hope I'm interesting enough.
No, you absolutely are. So we're going to start this conversation with this small exercise of positive reminiscence. I'm going to tell you, think of a positive memory, a fond memory of yours. Picture it in as much detail as possible. Think of the environment, think of the feelings, and talk about that.
Yeah. I think some of my fondest memories have always, it's very difficult to hone in on one, but for me, it's quite exacting that it's always that moment of traveling to somewhere new. I think that excitement that I think my parents did for me a lot was something that I'm very grateful for. I'm quite well traveled for my age, and I think that's a lot of where my learning comes from. And I still find that feeling, like even simple things, even when Stranger and Sons, we were opening new markets, the most exciting part was to interact with a culture that you don't know. But simply put, I think that smell at the airport when you're going to a new place and you land into a new country and you get out of the airport, the excitement of seeing something that you don't recognize has always been some of my earliest, fondest memories. And I still chase it every day. Yeah.
Of course, we're in Goa.
Yes.
And we're in Amaranth at the Countertop Labs.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a lot more about Countertop in the conversation, but thank you for having me here. But yeah, talking about Goa, you are Bandra born, but Goa is a big part of your life. So could you take me to the story of your early childhood, like some of your earliest memories, your schooling, and all of those things, and then how Goa relates to your life?
So schooling was all over the place.
Yeah.
I changed like 6 or 7 schools.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's easier said than done. I was at Kodaikanal school. From Kodaikanal International School. Somewhere when I was 14 or 15, my dad decided to move to Goa, and then it became a very integral part of us traveling here a lot.
Yeah.
Cut to starting Third Eye Distillery. Actually, as a kid, I hated coming here.
Okay.
I really disliked it. Goa was very different. It was small. I know my friends were here, and it was like you being a spoiled child, actually. Yeah, and happy to go back to Bombay. Now it's the exact opposite. I dread Bombay, and love being here. I think Goa has this like great balance of like living your work life and being close enough to nature and finding new people. And I think it does everything in India. So I think for me in general, I think, yeah, long story short, schooling was in Kodaikanal. Then I was in the UK. Dad moved here when I was 14, so kept coming here for the summers.
Yeah.
Got to starting Third Eye Distillery, funnily enough. Even though there are many states that offer the advantages that Goa does, the only reason we picked it is because, I mean, I've lived here, and
Yeah.
why else would you stay anywhere else? You know, like this just made sense.
Yeah.
And that was really why we took the call. Like, I know that somewhere down the line we'll be like, oh, why Goa and this, the taxes and all that shit. It's not like there are 5 or 6 states that do the same thing. It's just that look at your outside. Would you rather not be here?
Yeah, fair enough.
It's a good way to live your life. So yeah, that in a nutshell, that answers the question.
You spoke about your masters in the UK. So just a little bit before Third Eye, and of course, Stranger and Sons was your first sort of product that you launched through Third Eye,
Yeah.
in a big way. Did your masters in the UK and like the gin culture in the UK have a sort of was that one of the reasons why you chose gin?
No, so gin was actually a very strategic choice. It was very different. When we thought about Third Eye, we always wanted to be a house of brands coming from India
Yeah.
that was addressing sort of, when I mean people like us, was like aspirational new Indians
Yeah.
to resonate with brands when they go out that looked and felt like us.
Yeah.
And so the idea with actually operating with gin is that we knew gin was growing. We knew capital costs were in a sense easier than say a whiskey,
Yeah.
which we're doing soon now. And that's why we chose gin. And also, culturally, at that point, the gin and tonic or gin has a lot to do with India. Indians at that point were like following the gin trend from the West,
Yeah.
but um, there's like Bombay Sapphire and things that, uh, even though we made the spices and we made the liquor, it was just getting branded in a bottle and coming back.
Yeah.
And that to us was a great market opportunity, right? So you had, and that's why gin. So you had like these big players that were regional players within states. You had Pernod and Diageo on the other side that are obviously some of the world's biggest, brand owners.
Brand.
And they were like, hey, can we build a house of brands that cuts through this intersection and actually responds to India? So gin was that in the making.
Yeah.
We also knew that being in a place like Goa, we were very close to the spices and we could make an honest product. And we created something called Indian Spirited Gin.
Yeah.
The difference really with saying that is that it was very botanical forward. So I think people were shy about representing themselves as Indians even 5 years ago. I think we wanted to stop that when it came to your drink of choice.
Yeah.
So that's why. I mean, long story short, that's why gin.
Yeah.
From gin, short story.
Yeah.
Which was, the first umbrella brand for white spirits from India.
Yeah.
Like really providing a solution to Horeca outlets that were buying. There are 3 products from somewhere else, does 90% of the cocktails. Swami after that to make sure that your mixers are set. So anything from the 1,000 to 4,000 rupee category in India is where we want to be.
Yeah.
And then Countertop Labs, see bars like this or to maintain menus, is to have the entire value chain with us. So if you have a drink in India, at some point we should be able to interact with you, and that's
Fair enough. So just like it's not so easy to just like think, hey, today I want to start an alcohol brand and just go do it, right? Like so before.
No, it's rather stupid. Yeah.
So before you started with Third Eye, did you have any internships, any prior experience that really helped you in this journey? I also read somewhere, I think your dad has a construction company. So how is it, broaching that topic with your parents, like starting an alcohol brand? Like, how did that go about?
I mean, I ran a company before this, which I call my very expensive MBA, because I screwed it up in amazing fashion, and I think it was a great learning. We went from like 4 employees to 75 employees to shut in 2 years.
This was Gauri's Goodies, right?
Gauri's Goodies, yeah. And
start by your mom.
Start by my mom in the kitchen. I was like, oh, I'm going to turbocharge this.
Yeah.
Didn't really pan out the way I wanted it.
Do you want to explain about that journey a little bit more in detail? about the it's what vegan goods?
No,
I
no,
mean,
it was clean labels, essentially
okay.
non-preservative food.
Yeah.
We were at that point, you had like brands like Yoga Bar, us,
Yeah.
that kind of. Um, and yeah, she was doing it. I was working in the UK at this company called Eat Natural.
Okay.
I set up essentially the impact investing initiative, which
Yeah.
was growing honey across Europe.
Yeah.
We would buy it back for and and sell these smart hives to farmers, and they'd know what they were doing next and indicate a species, and that's a whole different story in science. And we were
Yeah.
doing it for a long time. Came back and it was like, hey, the chocolate wasn't stabilizing in India. They were having a huge problem. They were a large conglomerate. And they were like, hey, maybe I'll try my hand at doing this. And my mom was doing it from home anyways.
Yeah.
And cold breakfast in India was new. Like Indians
Okay.
always eat a hot breakfast compared
Yeah.
to, say, your counterparts in Europe where
Yeah.
they're happy having like bread, cheese,
Yeah.
granola bar
Yeah.
game, right? And a lot of people anticipated that would happen in India. So like, hey, can we give that response for Indians? And so we had a bunch of these products that really resonated with people. But I think I was just a bit young and aggressive,
Yeah.
which has gone away now. So yeah, I think I tried to grow way too fast. We were taking bank debt at that point. It felt like this race that if I didn't, didn't work while I was sleeping and didn't
Yeah.
work while I was waking up, it was not right. And I think that's where a lot of it went wrong, I guess. And I think we played our finances really badly. I think the product was good, margins were improving, all of that was fine.
Yeah.
I think the brand was resonating with people, but we did play our finances a bit badly, and that got it to a stop. So it was a great way to learn how not to raise money.
Yeah.
And that's why I met people like you. But yeah, that was the journey there. I think it was also a real great learning in how to manage people. So
Yeah.
we grew from a kitchen to a factory to a bigger factory all in 2 years. I suddenly
Yeah.
the high of, like, I guess, like starting a business that
Yeah.
skyrockets is fucking it's fun.
Yeah. I can imagine.
But I think the grit is maintaining it.
Yeah.
I think anybody can grow from 0 to 100. 100 to 1000 is always going to be where you make it or break
Yeah.
it.
What
Like
separates?
yeah,
Yeah.
what separates the
Winners.
riff-raff
Yeah.
from the winners.
Yeah. I look at it like, you say it's an expensive MBA, but like, one of the questions that I always get, like, a lot of my peers, like friends ask me, or like a couple of friends of mine are going for their MBAs to college.
Yeah.
And I'm of the school that, I just think that the way India is right now and like the pace at which it's growing, taking 2 years off to, go study somewhere else in the world just
Yeah.
seems like, seems like a crime almost.
I think it depends on what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I have a very especially when people come for job interviews
Yeah.
and you say you have an MBA from an American
Yeah.
university. Me personally, I'm already like, this is India, dude. Like it is very different. Even when I moved back after
Yeah.
being in the UK, working, studying there, it
Yeah.
took me a year and a half, I think, to unlearn a lot of things. Right?
Yeah.
Again, I think each to their own. I think if
Yeah.
you're in a corporate structure
Yeah.
where it matters and it helps you get that next
Yeah.
promotion, salary. If you're in a business where that
Yeah.
networking at that great school is going to work for you,
Yeah.
I think all those things are great. But I think
Yeah.
if you like entrepreneurship programs to me in the US,
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're doing there, dude.
Fair
Like, you're better off, same thing, taking that same, how much ever X amount of money, starting a business, crashing it.
Yeah.
You learn everything that you need to learn in
I
that
think
process.
more, right? Because it's actual relevant experience, right? Like, so I'm sure, like, through your experience at Gauri's
Yeah, I
Billies-
didn't mean to crash it.
Yeah, of course,
But
no one
nah,
means to crash it.
It crashed in
Yeah.
glorious fashion, yeah.
Fair enough. Where's where's Third Eye today? Tell me a little bit about starting. You have two co-founders, right? So
Yeah, Rahul
how did
and
that
Sakshi.
how did that journey start? And a little bit about, the early days?
Sakshi was in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Sakshi is my second cousin.
Okay.
But we grew up 2 roads away from each other.
Fair enough.
So our mums are quite close. And she was in Barcelona, I was in the UK. So looking at from outward in, we knew India was premiumizing it seemed like the gin trend was coming or other alcohol trends were coming.
Yeah.
We saw India brands, some of them start growing to be like, hey, India might be ready for consuming its own.
Yeah.
I say this a lot, like you talk to a French man
Yeah.
about French milk, he's like, this is the best shit in the world. Like, there's nothing better than this.
Yeah.
You talk to an Indian guy about Indian apples, he'll be like, oh, we export all the good stuff. This is shit. Please have the Chinese one. It's ridiculous how much we don't trust our own produce. And I
Yeah.
think that was changing from the outside.
Yeah.
Rahul had started Gateway Brewing Company, which was one of the first beer companies from India and was obviously showing progress there. He then actually started Swami Tonic, which we
Yeah.
acquired. But, and then they started dating,
Yeah.
which is when I met them.
Fair enough.
And funny enough, like I came when I was doing Gauri's and like an advisor to Swami Tonic to help them grow into the smaller level markets that we had entered as Gauri's. And then after a while, we were all chatting at a bar and they were like, and at that point, everyone was, what's happening to tequila now, 5 years ago, was gin, right?
Yeah.
Everyone was drinking gin.
Yeah.
Suddenly, it was whiskey before that, if you remember it. And
Yeah.
then suddenly everyone was like, shit, guys would be seen with a white drink, which is a big, or like a clear drink, which is a big deal. And then it sort of started studying the market a little bit more. And you saw in every category, all we did is either looked for the West to validation and didn't have Indian brands. One, yes, it's cool to be India forward and stuff, and we're always going to be that. Two, the margin, the business sense at the back really made sense. It was a high margin business. Yes, tough barrier to entry.
Yeah.
But if you made it, that was the call. Like what? Our first distributor laughed at us. He literally laughed us out of the room. He was like a 2,500 rupee gin. No one from India, no one's going to drink it.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. Like literally holding his stomach, laughing, so leave.
Yeah.
And
Have you met him recently?
yeah, he sells our stuff. He's happy. And that's okay. I mean, the first time we went to Thailand, they said, you're from India, please turn around and leave. The first time we went from London, you wouldn't finish your pitch. I had bottles in my backpack.
Yeah.
Right? And he was like, are you from India? Please leave. Straight. No, the ability. Like we had also created this international brand. It's not great. We're not the most loved tourist in most places.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we're in the 50 best bars in any of our countries now,
Yeah.
the only Indian white spirit to make it to lists like the Savoy,
Yeah.
is validation that I think that can change if you do it. And I think alcohol brands do it in a way that you can be proud of because you're having fun with your friends at a really fancy place and you see an Indian brand.
Yeah.
It's very commonplace for you to see a British brand.
Yeah.
But you very rarely ever see an Indian brand. I think that's going to change.
Yeah.
For a lot of the how the industry is going.
No, I definitely see. I think when I got back from the US, just a little bit after COVID or during COVID, before that the only like Indian brands I knew were like Royal Stag and like these really I would say more whiskey.
That's before you start making money.
Yeah. And honestly, now when I look at the whole Indian landscape, there's so many new age brands which are coming up all the time. And like, even in Goa, I think you'd mentioned at one point in time, there's like someone had mentioned 350 gin brands which are registered in Goa. So it's a crazy stat.
I should know that. No.
So it's very nice to see this India to the world story. But okay, now we learned like how about like how the idea of Third Eye, starting it with Rahul and Sakshi, your cousin. Now, early days of Third Eye, how's the process? Did you get a co-packer? How do you formulate? How do you go about starting something like this, which seems so monumental from the beginning? Unless any of you have like experience doing that.
I think we get a lot of love for the brand, and we didn't think it was a thing.
Yeah.
In all honesty, like we were just like,
yeah,
hey, let's make some good gin. But I think price point, product, and I think the interest in the storytelling, and how much India had to offer was exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, initially we started with like very little startup capital.
Yeah. What was very little then?
Like, I think a lot of it was right place, right time.
Yeah.
Which happens to any brand that I think takes off, because branding is very different from sort of use case products, right? People
Yeah.
have to like you, which is very different. I think second is that I think it was a great combination of people that cared about the product, that cared about what it looked like, that cared about what it meant for us as somebody that's going to see this Indian product. At that point, even in a city like Bombay, had never seen an Indian gin. So
Yeah.
there was obviously a couple of people before us, but nobody had come to Bombay. There's some of them on Goa. It was a open landscape. And I remember at one point I was sitting at this club in Bandra called Otters Club, and every single table had a stranger bottle.
Okay.
And I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I was just like listening to people chit chat, and some lady next to me was like, "Hey, I shouldn't be drinking like, say, a Western product."
Yeah.
But she's like convincing her friend
Yeah.
to like drink Stranger and Sons. She's just like, "Look at this bottle, so cool. It's like it's never made in India," which is the most annoying thing that I hear, anyways.
Yeah.
It was crazy, man. Me, Sakshi, Rahul set up the first still ourselves. Like nuts, bolts, screws. Like there's a
Yeah.
picture of me like hanging from the.
Yeah.
It's like scorpions coming out of the
You
pipe, being
send us
like,
that
what
picture.
to do with this?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was just like it was actually quite very like homemade
Yeah.
in a way that we were working on that gin constantly, like really nervous about when it was going to come out and people are going to try it for the first time. We'd obviously made a very bold liquid. It was like full of taste, and we thought like Indian. I mean, a simple way to put it, like you go to Europe, you go to a really good European restaurant again, and somebody will be like, "Oh, this is where the chicken was grown. Like that's how it's made. This is where
Yeah.
the cow birthed the butter to the
Yeah.
milk."
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in India, they'll be like, that every grandmother will have her own spice mix, but will cook the out of the protein. Right?
Yeah.
It's about how we flavored the product
Yeah.
versus even Europeans will be like how the product is, like what the actual product is.
Yeah.
So there they'll be like, oh, the quality of the food is so good that we
Yeah.
just need some salt, butter, and we're fine.
Yeah.
Here we'll be like, oh, the exact opposite, that you'll have layers of spices and 3 types of cooking, and it'll be full
Yeah.
of flavor and it'll slap you in the face. And essentially, even if you think about yourself, like you actually like that
Yeah.
as an Indian, right? Like bland food is a thing
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
It's really not a thing for your Western counterpart,
No, for sure.
right? And so this is bold flavored gin, the amount of trials, tribulations, it was even when the still was ready. I actually slept next to the still for a couple of days because we didn't know when the electricity meter would go off, so I had to stay there to wait for the sound. And it was like full on.
Yeah.
Like, it was hot, like this.
Yeah.
Not too far away from here is the
Yeah.
distillery. We didn't have a fan.
Yeah.
So you just be like there without a shirt on because I couldn't do this. Like it was like so. In the way, it is a startup in its finest fashion. Like the first machineries were built by us.
No.
The piping was done by us. The first 7 to 10 batches were done with either me, Rahul, or Sakshi, like looking over the still,
Yeah.
checking if it's ready,
Yeah.
getting it to bottle, like standing there and getting it done. Obviously, it's good that we don't do that anymore. We have a great R&D team
Yeah.
headed by this lady called Chanel Martins who's running it, and yeah, it was full on. So a lot of sweat, tears, not a lot of blood.
Not a lot of blood.
Yeah, thanks.
Just alcohol.
Yeah, just blood alcohol levels. Not really either. Like those first few days, like you didn't have time to drink. Like it was just everyone else around you was like, "Oh man, this tastes great," and you're like, "Good, you know that. Thank
Yeah.
God. As long as you're saying it, it's okay."
It's almost like when you're a chef, you can't eat your own food, right? Like, you
No,
get
I can
tired,
drink
yeah,
my own
yeah.
liquor, 100%. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you
I
have to-
actually prefer to drink my own liquor.
Yeah, of course.
This never get high on
It's a
your
great
own
one.
supply is not a thing at the Third Eye team, but
Yeah. Storytelling, of course, seeing that the counterpart, which was, or that point of time, the alternate product, the Western products, which were, higher priced, like your Bombay Sapphire or something, which, you didn't, so you saw an opportunity. Why Third Eye? Or like, you have a very interesting logo. You have this three-eyed beast with two tails.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that? And Stranger and Sons in itself is a very interesting name. So I want to know
Yeah.
a little bit more about that as well.
Well, I think when we were looking at the Indian landscape, I think India was being typecasted at that point quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it's like yoga pants, curry, like you were getting a lot of that shit.
Yeah.
And obviously people that have lived abroad, like say me, Sakshi, you, like it was not like somebody literally at St. Andrews, which is supposed to be one of the better universities in the world,
Yeah.
asked me if people still go to school on elephants.
Okay. Fair
And now I'm
enough.
thinking that I'm in the wrong school today, like shit. And you'd have situations like this where even branding from India, you would notice, would be like, uh, very India focused, very town, have India in its name, have a peacock, a tiger, or something very associated with India in it. Um, and we wanted to show essentially what is our India, right?
Yeah.
So we believe, and I say this a lot, is where the age old and the brand new meets each other. That's India, right? So
Yeah.
you will have somebody that like us who understand our culture but are doing some crazy tech but still believe in God. Like
Yeah.
it's confusing. Like the place is odd whereas the West has two sides to it. India is full of stories. And I said if I launched a brand in like Northern Iceland, I'd run out of stories at some point. But
Yeah.
in India today,
Yeah.
I can showcase 27 countries
Yeah.
essentially, right? And it's endless. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So the idea was you didn't want to take an Indian sort of the traditional
Yeah, so we didn't
elephant.
want, so again, so the name Stranger and Sons and
Yeah.
so the couple of things actually initially, India always makes you look twice. And initially the idea was that India, if you look at it from the outside, is a relatively, it's not a strange place, but it's somewhere that you have to understand.
Absolutely.
Right? Like we hide shoes during a wedding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that you can extort the groom for money. Right? I feel it's a ridiculous concept. If you think about it,
Yeah.
it's a ridiculous concept.
Yeah. As a foreigner, if I moved from New York, I would think that's a
Correct.
little.
And this is
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
this is just a Punjabi tradition. So let alone,
No, it's a Madhu
or like a
tradition as well.
like a
Yeah.
northern tradition,
Yeah.
let alone the
Yeah.
sorry, let alone the
Yeah.
south. And then it started off with, initially it was like, because me, Sakshi, and Rahul was still family in a sort. So you had the and sons added to that.
Okay.
Even though we want to get rid of our colonial hangover, it had something to do with appreciating the fact that
Yeah.
it's a family business. And
Yeah.
in India, a lot of family businesses pass down their secret sauce from generation to generation.
Yeah.
And that has really worked and made all of them very rich. So
Yeah.
so hopefully we could do the same thing. But yeah, but that was it. So we were appreciating family businesses and India's agricultural heritage. There's two things that we wanted to
Yeah.
focus on. So the liquid is very like India spice focused, whereas the brand was representing what I would love. All honestly, like what I would love to see in an Indian bottle. That was essentially it. We said, hey, can we sell to and create brands to people that we understand? I think India is a vast market.
Yeah.
It's and the alcohol market is $38 billion, the
Yeah.
fastest growing market in the world. And very segmented, right? So
Yeah.
you have $1 billion businesses at the 500 rupee whiskey bottle, you have $1 billion business at the 2000 rupee whiskey bottle, and
Yeah.
it's just, the range is insane. And so we're like, hey, can we just sell to people we know?
Yeah.
And it should just resonate with someone like me. And that was interesting to watch. That
Yeah.
I think a lot of aspirational India that wanted to see themselves and not be typecasted as the Indian,
Yeah.
that token brown guy in a white series.
Yeah.
We say white series. No, in what I
I
mean.
understand. Yeah. You don't the stereotype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why Stranger and Sons. That's why we're refreshing. So essentially, the tiger is not a tiger. It looks like a tiger from a distance, but it's a three-eyed, two-tailed monster with one hand and one paw.
Yeah.
It's a mythical being, not a
Yeah.
monster, essentially. And the idea was, it was actually at some level for us poking jest at the idea that we take our superstition so seriously, and
Yeah.
but at the same time, we're technically so sound and we'll be so scientific.
Yeah.
We can look inwards, that we can make fun of ourselves, that we can have a good time, which is not just holy,
Yeah. Of course.
right? Like, don't throw color on yourself. And that's where it is that we can internationally have the same satire, the same humor, the same interesting. We actually used to build worlds in internationally. So like we'd We built the Delhi Gymkhana. We built a permit room in London, so people could walk in and
Very cool.
actually experience how people drank in India.
Yeah.
And it was a great way to tell the India story, which is not just like,
Yeah.
we have 1.6 billion people and there are
Fair enough.
tigers here and,
Like,
everyone wears a turban.
yeah. So storytelling is a big part. Like, you mentioned it a few times. You mentioned your experience. You mentioned, as a stranger, even with stranger or with Third Eye, that's a very big aspect of your branding. What do you think? And I've seen so many brands, like we were talking earlier a bit, like, there's Subco Coffee, which is a new coffee chain from Bombay, right? Like, of course, Rahul. And one of the things I really like about them is, their bean to cup is not just, okay, we got the beans from here and we made it into a nice cup of coffee, but there's a history to it.
Yeah.
How important do you think in going forward, or in branding today, or even in like creating a new sort of, in any industry, doesn't have to be only in AlcoBev, but how important do you think is storytelling as an aspect when it comes to branding?
I mean, for me, it's a little fundamental. I think storytelling is a way that we pass down some of our most cherished memories. Like it's
Yeah.
your grandmother telling you a story about the generation before that was still stuck with you at some point.
Yeah.
This is us telling a story to somebody else. I think it's one way. I think now storytelling as a buzzword, but brands always told stories,
Yeah.
right? Or we always tell stories. I think the relevance of that story is more important than how important storytelling is.
Okay.
If you tell an audience a story that they essentially don't want to listen to, or they're not, um, it's not relevant to them,
Yeah.
you'll miss the mark. I think everyone from Gillette to us
Yeah.
is saying a story, right? Some level.
Yeah.
But like say something like short story.
Yeah.
Saying story so many times, I
Yeah.
said that word way too many times in a sentence,
Yeah.
but was the idea that hey, we're going to cut out all the noise, that
Okay.
everyone's telling these elaborate stories when it comes to alcohol. You can taste the wood, this is my mythical being, like this is India. And that's important.
Yeah.
For that product.
Okay.
But we thought we were alienating a large part that just want to like, have a product that they can rely on.
Yeah.
No bullshit. Go straight to the point. Have some fun,
Yeah.
party, and that was short story. So, but that in itself, right? I think we applied it ourselves to a slightly younger audience, uh, to a slightly more easier field to understand,
Yeah.
and actually reduce the storytelling. But that was relevant. I think relevance is more important. Even with Swami,
Yeah.
there was something called Swami mixers or Swami. The way it's this sort of like cool alternative brand.
Yeah.
Have it over anything else. Made in India fully again. Nice glass bottle.
Yeah.
How it makes you feel. The stories of them have to be relevant to the audience right now, and I think that's what we did, if I may say so, well.
Okay.
Our brands resonate with our audience quite a bit. We get a lot of recognition for the brand, I think, over its consumption. I think people who don't drink will also have a bottle of Stranger and Sons and Swami at their bar.
That's a win, no?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Just because when my friends come, I need to entertain them.
Fair enough. Yeah. Do you think, as say today, with this sort of house of brands concept, what was the thought? Like, I'm sure you started off thinking that, okay, there is, we want to create this house of brands, and even when the first time we met,
Yeah.
I think that was the emphasis. It wasn't just Stranger and Sons. So today, in this house of brands, we have, I of course know a little bit, but like, just for everyone's sort of knowledge. So we have Stranger and Sons, which is, the gin, the first product that y'all had. You've recently taken over Svami, which is a tonic water.
Yeah.
And then Short Story. I want to hear a little bit more about Short Story. You said it's a
It's one of
umbrella
India's
brand.
first
Yeah.
umbrella.
Yeah.
So it's got 3 products under one brand.
Okay.
A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
But we also think that we wanted to give India its base mark of quality, essentially.
Okay.
Right, so you should keep your eyes closed, no thoughts. Like you would pick a short story and it should, especially for Horeca,
Yeah.
make 90% of your cocktails
Okay.
done, right? whether you're negotiating with multiple brands
Yeah.
or multiple brands that have multiple offerings, at some point, so in the bar world, we break up what you can see at the bar and what's on the speed rail. There's
Yeah.
something called pourings, which comes down,
Yeah.
which the consumer never sees.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you essentially order a vodka tonic,
Yeah.
the vodka that's used is something that's under contract,
Yeah.
unless you specify the brand.
Yeah.
Um, and their short story played a really, really important part in making sure that I think a lot of, again, we use a lot of Western products as our base case quality. When I say Western, like anything international, but I think this provided the India answer, right? Looks good, tastes great. The amount of work gone into each
Yeah.
product, the vodka is like filtered thrice. The gin is a plain gin, crisp. And then the rum is 80% Indian mixed with 3 Caribbean rums to make what I think is actually a really amazing white rum from India for the first time. So um, the products will speak for itself, but no need to have the worlds built and all of that. I do think it's resonated with the Indian audience and the one we wanted quite a while. We just did our first few export orders to Thailand recently. Let's see how it goes there.
Yeah.
But I think India as a supplier internationally
Yeah.
is becoming more important for that price
Yeah.
scale. And so, we've taken some contracts away in Thailand from some pretty prominent vodka brands.
Yeah.
And that's refreshing to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's short story. Short story also, I think, with the Third Eye concept is that we have the same distribution line. We keep gonna churn brands
enough.
into it.
Yeah.
So what Stranger and Sons did in about 3 years in volume, Short Story did in one,
Yeah. Fair enough.
right? And we hopefully will keep
Yeah.
speeding that up.
Makes sense.
Hopefully.
So,
I really hope so.
you have short story, you have Swami. Swami, more from a holistic point of view, to have, of course, the alcohol, but like, say, you have a gin and then, it's a natural progression to do a tonic as well.
Makes sense. If you're mixing my alcohol with something, you might
Yeah.
as well, have it with something that you
Yeah.
trust. I think Swami, when we were looking at Swami from the outside,
Yeah.
uh, as a challenger brand, it had a very large market share in the
Yeah.
sense that very resonative. I mean, Coca-Cola company is the Coca-Cola company, and
Yeah.
they're always going to be there.
Yeah.
But they were large enough, and the brand resonated enough. They had their best year so far after we sort of worked with them.
Yeah.
And I think Indians who don't drink or Indians who are going to get more and more cocktail culture is just coming to India, like
Yeah.
something like Countertop Labs, right? Now people are suddenly finicky about what they mix their drinks
Yeah.
with. Otherwise, before that, like even if you imagine a party 5 years ago, there'd be like 2 bottles of whiskey, a couple of beer, a little bit of soda, some ice lying there on the table, help yourself. Now you'll have a server, you'll have someone that's mixing
Yeah.
drinks. They'll be like, oh, I got this bottle from here.
Yeah.
It's becoming
Novelty.
it's becoming not a novelty, it's becoming a point of
Storytelling. Or experience.
storytelling, but it's becoming a point of pride,
Yeah.
right? To how you serve that drink and
Yeah.
do you know more?
Yeah.
A gentleman knows how to mix a cocktail. I saw
Yeah.
some other brand do that the other day. It's like, great. Thank God, because gentlemen and women should know how to mix a cocktail.
Yeah.
And I think Swami is a great addition to that question, that if we are building what India looks like when it goes out, when it has a drink, when it has some fun,
Yeah.
then also mix it with a brand that's doing a great job. So our tonic waters, I think, are our largest selling product so far.
Okay.
But I'm very, very excited to show you what Swami 2.0 will look like next year. Some really fun products.
Okay.
I
didn't even know there could be a 2.0 of tonic water.
No. So we're adding additions. It's a mixer brand. Again, the way we look at Swami, it's a sort of a soft drink mixer brand.
Sure.
So we do like a non-alcoholic rum and cola. We do non-alc as well, right? So non-alcoholic gin and tonic.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're still figuring out who drinks that, but people are buying it.
Fair
right?
enough.
Yeah. It's not in our realm of understanding. But it works, and I think there's a lot of India that will wake up to low alc, non-alcoholic, mixing with the right better for you kind of
Yeah.
mixers.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to be here for. And we want to be the Indian answer to that. We're also very, very excited to try and see if we can export
Yeah.
Indian drinks. So I think from other than like some of the older Indian brands, nobody has really ever gone out of India.
Yeah.
Some people are doing a great job. Swami was in Hong Kong and Singapore for a while, but I think we're going to redo that in some time.
Fair enough. Um, so now, okay, you've got this. It's you, Sakshi, Rahul. You've got this. You've made this tale. You're making your formulation. I want to know a little bit about how to even start with the concept of formulation, because it's
Oh,
like
it's crazy.
chemistry. Right? Yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
chemistry, right? Like, because did y'all
So
know how to do it, or
no, so we did a gin. I keep telling this. We did a gin with the world's whatever best gin distillery 3 years in a row. It's called Four Pillars in Australia.
yeah,
It was crazy that they even wanted to work with us. Like
yeah,
we're like fangirling when they called us back. We're like,
okay,
shit, really?
yeah,
And we had to do it on Zoom because it was COVID.
yeah,
We're lost like adjectives to describe how something tastes like. It's like, what is it doing? I was like, I don't know. I have no words for it anymore. I
yeah,
can't switch enough languages. But formulation essentially in India,
yeah,
you know, everyone says what to put in their gin. In India, I think it's what you can take out of your gin.
yeah,
You can put the earth.
yeah,
Like when we send them our spices there and they send us spices back, like our list of spices was a book.
yeah.
Theirs was substantially smaller book.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this, we just grow too much shit and we use a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like because all of you see our dishes are like highly complex.
Complex,
You
yeah.
take from a garam masala, then spice, then cook once, then do try. It's it's a laborious process
Yeah.
to make what is essentially that I believe one of the best cuisines that the world has ever created. But
Yeah.
um, so in a nutshell, gin especially, we can go now. We do multiple spirits, so we
Yeah.
can go to multiple spirits. But gin has three breakups for what we
Yeah.
call a three-dimensional or one-dimensional gin. So
Yeah.
something like your quintessential gins are very one-dimensional. The taste of juniper, they do well in a martini.
Yeah.
Whereas what we do is three-dimensional gins where they'll have a different flavor on the nose. So in your start palate, in your mid palate, and when you
Yeah.
finish. And all three things are controlled by the distiller. So we
Yeah.
did it in the start, like so say, like a lot of the gins are the formulation will come from us, but they will then we have enough people advising us to build the
Fair
product.
enough.
And that happens at different heat signatures with different products. So like spice, like anything citrus, will go on the front because it cooks faster.
Yeah.
Anything that's a bark will
Yeah.
come at the back because like something like cinnamon,
Yeah.
cassia bark will come at the back. And that's the sort of range in which how a gin guy will play with it. Obviously, vodka, whiskey, tequila, everything else works very differently. Vodka is for you to get like essentially a balanced, smooth taste. It's actually one of the hardest tastings to do.
Yeah.
Because what you're tasting for is very, very subtle, but to make something that's sort of a volatile spirit and bring it down to something that's smooth and tastes good.
Yeah.
Then I mean, rum is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Like where you pick your cane from, how you distill it,
Yeah.
how much you age it. Rum is actually the most complex, in my opinion, of all the alcohols. Which you do Spanish style, French style, which country, where it's coming from. So we're launching a dark rum soon.
Okay.
And that's a spice rum. So you can spice your rums. It's a whole different world. You can do it from the cane juice. You can do it from molasses.
Yeah.
Whiskey, everybody knows how much you age it. Where's your grain coming
yeah.
from? This whole myth about water.
Yeah.
And so they're all different, but essentially doing the same thing. You're distilling a sugar.
Yeah.
The easiest way to look at it, you're manipulating a sugar to become liquid, and then you're adding flavor the way you think does it best, right?
Yeah.
So like a Perry Road Peru that we did with the Bombay Canteen is a Stranger and Sons gin that got redistilled with a fruit mash because it was COVID and we needed to sell a cocktail.
Yeah.
Then suddenly like everyone really liked it.
It's one of my favorite gins I've ever had.
It's crazy. I think we went from 300 bottles to 30,000 bottles
Yeah,
in
I'm
2
sure.
years, right?
Yeah.
To the point where now it's become a permanent product because we can't take it off the shelf.
Yeah.
But that's amazing that like that you did all this research and at the end of the day, like I think like a lot of entrepreneurs like come across very sure of themselves, and 9 out of 10, right? Like it's your best guess at best. Like
Fair enough. In my understanding, when you were talking about formulations and the different flavor profiles, do you think, like from you when you first make it, or like in any alcohol, not just say Stranger and Sons, does the formulation, like the taste, ever change? Like say if it's just the base category, I'm not talking about say your Perry Road Peru, which is a special flavor, but say Stranger and Sons, like just the normal gin that you'll have. Does the formulation ever change? Do you tweak it a little bit to improve it, or like the main game aim is if you find something you like, you stick to it till the end?
Yeah, no. The consistency is very important. I think one of the biggest marks of quality of a distillery is to keep the product the same.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own fundamentals to doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you won't. The whole idea is to create the same thing.
Yeah.
Again and again. You won't tweak.
Nothing.
I mean, especially alcohol is like this weird kind of loyalty where once people like something, I think it's changing from generation to generation. But if you remember your generation uncle before that, मैं यही whiskey पीऊँगा, मैं और कुछ हाथ ही नहीं लगाता हूँ. That's a thing. I think people get very loyal about their booze, and so you don't want to mess with it.
Fair enough.
I mean, also because that's what you're expecting, so that's what you keep.
It's like with Coca-Cola, right? Like you have a certain taste which is like ingrained in your mind, and you kind of.
Yeah, I wish we become their size at some point. But yeah, it's like. Yeah, I think you associate with a certain taste and you associate with a certain mark of quality, and I think, especially in the food business, and I've been there for very long. I think marketing, storytelling, all of that is great, and that has to do right. But the only thing that will bring people back to your product is product. Because they're consuming it.
Yeah.
And if you skimp on that even for a second, you've lost the game there.
Fair enough.
So we're very finicky about what goes into the bottle, what the bottle made of, what's the cork look like. It's a lot of we look at our label much more than the consumer does. I say that a lot.
So okay, now you've got the team, you've got the initial formulation, right? Walk me through what the next process is. Like you find a bottler and then you
you have to bottle with someone. Because it's fairly expensive to get to a bottler.
Or are there any steps which I missed in the middle? Like, okay, so you've got formulation.
No, so where you create the spirit is where you bottle. It makes no sense unless you to move that around. And then as the more you need to bottle and the more space you need, you keep growing.
Fair enough.
So we had to move places at one point because we just became too large for where we started, which was a room not much larger than this.
Okay.
Now it's a room which is much larger than this. So it's really surreal, but you get to a bottler, and then the biggest thing was to find distributors, to find people that would buy you. That was actually our biggest uphill battle. Was to also convince the Indian audience, like that distributor who laughed us off, that like initially what worked for us, which is really annoying for us, we were like, ये तो India में बनता ही नहीं है, somebody argued with me, this is not made in India, and it's like, I don't know how to tell you this in any other way other than I made that bottle and I'm giving it to you. But
you're lying.
But I found that extremely annoying, that Indians would not believe that this is made here. But therefore I should buy it.
Do you think that's changing?
That's changed completely. Initially that was it. Now it's changed completely. I think it has a lot to do with a lot of brands that are doing this, like understanding that the business and the brand coming from here is not something to be shy of. And selling that with pride, I guess, across the world. I think the last liquor brand that we've really actually exported properly was Old Monk. Nothing's ever come out of India. And Old Monk is like it's always, you could be a billionaire and somebody will have an Old Monk.
Fair enough.
Like I think it's as strong as Parle. I think it's one of India's strongest consumer brands.
I'm sure,
People get really upset with you if you insult Old Monk. They're like, what do you mean it's like not great rum? It's not great rum.
Yeah.
It's just rum can be better. So we're doing that.
Yeah.
Old Monk will always have a special place in my heart, but
Yeah. So you've got a bottle, or you figured out like the whole bottling process. You've got someone to help you to do it for you. What next? Like the whole, who's going to buy this? Like you've got this great recipe, or what you think is great. How do you go about selling this? Like what's the first few steps? Did you have friends? Did you reach out to, or like
yeah, obviously
yeah
word of mouth initially,
yeah
restaurants and bars.
yeah
But Stranger and Sons, funny enough,
yeah
has a much larger retail uptake, which
yeah
is what you want to get to. So people are
yeah?
taking it to their houses.
How do you divide it? With like distribution?
So distribution works
Yeah.
differently for a restaurant, and it'll
Hmm.
work differently for a retail store, like a theka,
ठीक है.
whatever you want to call it.
Where's the margins the highest? Or is the margins the same everywhere?
Yeah, my selling price. So because it's a state subject,
Yeah.
we actually to some places sell to the distributor of the state. We never actually sell to that end consumer.
Yeah.
So my margin stays the same wherever I sell.
Okay.
My margins between India and exports change. That's
Yeah.
where our margins change. So obviously, like a product going much further away, our novelty value is higher, and
Yeah. Costs are
uh,
higher.
and it makes the work involved in getting it there is much
Yeah.
higher. So obviously, it commands a higher price.
Yeah.
But we are in 16 countries with Stranger now, with a concentration of about 5. So our selling price is the same. Everything else on top of that
Yeah.
is tax.
Fair enough.
And that's why the same bottle will cost different thing in different states, because excise is a federal subject, so it's with the state.
Yeah.
So they can decide how they charge it. So to 4 states like Delhi, Rajasthan, Telangana, Karnataka, we sell to the state.
Okay.
My customer is actually the government of.
Okay.
I can't sell directly to you.
And like, how do you all decide quantity and stuff around that? Like, how does the state decide that they need these many bottles over?
No, we decide. They're the conduit through which it comes out.
Fair enough. So they'll be a middleman in such a
Yeah,
way.
so we have people on the ground. We have marketeers on the ground in almost every state. We have something called brand ambassadors, like a brand ambassadorial team.
I know, I met one of them. Yeah.
That will like sort of train bars, but also entertain people. They're like the best way to look at them is like these like pseudo sales rock stars. They do both.
Yeah. Do you think that's unique to you, or there's other brands that
No, it's an industry-wide thing.
Yeah.
Everybody has their set of brand ambassadors, and whose is
Yeah.
it's like a football team at one point. You're like picking players, and Countertop does that fabulously. They're brand ambassadors for other brands.
Yeah.
So they also do that for other import brands. So Countertop will represent you in India.
Yeah.
It's a hard job.
Of course.
They have to be charming behind the bar.
Yeah.
And make the drinks and do the billing and decide the menu. I mean, shit. I could do it, but I don't want to. Minus the charm behind the bar. I'd be really upset with people. But yeah.
So you've got this great, like, okay, you figured out bottling, you figured out you have your different sales channels. What was the way you started? Like, I remember in 2020, I'd just come back. I'd heard of Stranger and Sons before, but I'd not like heard of it like that extensively. But then suddenly I feel like there was like this one moment, I think maybe it was COVID, or like a lot of people at home, or it was Perry Road, Peru, or like it was something that happened, and then it was just everywhere. Like I just felt like I was constant. Maybe it was Bangalore environment. You entered the new city, like you entered Bangalore as a new city. So I want to know how did this initial sales sort of process of setting SNS work?
I think a lot of right place at right time.
Yeah.
I think we were a brand that was exciting and intriguing, and at that point the alcohol world was like, here's big poster, free booze, big DJ.
How do you compete
game
when you, like you said, right?
Just become more interesting, I guess.
Okay.
It's guerrilla warfare for sure.
Yeah.
Our events were a bit different. They were focused on things that were sort of India forward.
Yeah.
There were things a lot of people hadn't experienced before necessarily. I think at the same time, India was exposing itself to want these things. So we were relevant, like what I said before.
Yeah.
I think we were the first people to get the Soho House listing. We had actually taken the entire hotel.
Yeah.
And we were taking 6 floors,
Yeah.
and each floor was a different experience. And we had batched them into 7 people, and 7 people at a time while they were waiting in line. They were holding room for them.
Yeah.
And like people had never been for events like this,
Yeah.
right? And there was actors, dancers, silent disco. By the time we're done in the end, it was, and each telling you a story about India or a
Yeah.
different story about, because
Yeah.
encapsulating India
Yeah.
is impossible,
It is.
right? You have like Maharashtra versus Orissa. They're two different nations. You can't, they're culturally, you cannot. How do you tell that story? How do you tell everybody that we're so layered? And
Yeah.
so I think we did that really well. We latched on to artists that needed the face time that they were not getting.
Yeah.
We latched on to distributors. We created a distribution network
Yeah.
that was sort of started funding distributors that had the giving them the sales force and the
Yeah.
know-how. And um, so I think the whole the joke that I tell everybody,
Yeah.
he said this is overheard in Bombay scene, right? And someone was like, oh, you can recognize a Bandra boy because he wears a beard, he has a black t-shirts, he reads
I've heard
Murakami
that one.
and drinks Stranger and Sons.
I've heard
Or like,
that
made it. We are now in pop culture to define what a Bandra boy looks like.
one. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that for all the Bandras in India, which there are many,
Yeah.
that we happen to be the same guy. So yeah, I think we became culturally quite relevant.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just cool. I don't think we're like like when people have like serious business conversations, like humble brag, but like Forbes 30 under 30 Asia when we were
Yeah.
there. Uh, I keep saying this, like everyone's going to change the world, it's going to be the next unicorn. But the most people spoke to me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because this is how I drank, this is the bar I should go to, this is what my hangover feels like. That's mixing. And so you have all these like great, like, well-funded tech, this,
Yeah.
that, like,
Yeah.
climate tech, space tech, and you're like, it's like, why? I make booze, dude. Like,
Yeah.
But I think we got, also in Singapore when they went out, they saw us in every single bar. And then it was cool to start being relevant as an Indian brand. Yeah.
Is I know you mentioned you started sort of you didn't set up your distillery at first, right? It's just been something that is
No,
done.
Yeah. So the way to separate is the distilling equipment, the people, the process, the quality control has always been ours.
Yeah.
It's just that to save capital cost, we would do it in.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
With someone who has the space.
Yeah.
And essentially rent their license.
Yeah. What is you can say an advantage of that versus now that you've set up your own distillery? Like, what is advantage?
We're in the process of doing. I mean, again, I think the only advantage of now when you need some kind of scale to move to your own place is obviously that helps you with some cost.
Yeah.
And some control over your product. And obviously, not having to share the space with say multiple brands. But I think it's still, we've been lucky to always have great partners. I think if that happens, then it's good. Yeah. Also, if the product is everything is good. Everything is good. This is the rule of business, right?
Yeah.
Product is moving. Everyone's making their margins. Everyone's happy. No one's going to touch you. Like, it's fine.
It's so funny you just mentioned that India is so layered, right? Like, it's crazy because when you were talking about Gauri's Goodies and you were talking about cold breakfast and you said, India wasn't used to a cold breakfast. I think, the thing that really stood out for me is, okay, of course, we're not used to a cold breakfast, but even in a hot breakfast, we have 30 different varieties. Like, south you get dosa, and north you get chole bhature, and somewhere else you get aloo and puri, and like, it's just so varied that how can you standardize something? And like, does that suit every palate? So, it almost becomes like an urban product where few people are experimenting, but it's not an everyday thing because, every day you want something new.
Yeah.
So it just kind of clicked to me. But going back to gin, so in 2019, 2018, I felt like, and you would also mention that, India had gone through like a gin revolution. And now, in a certain sense, I feel like it's going through a tequila revolution. Do you actually think that, or is it just someone from the outside?
I think it's just us. It's just, and when I mean us, it's just people who are exposed to.
Yeah.
I think right now, with a lot of cities, we're still teaching them how to drink gin.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are still waking up to drinking alcohol for enjoying it and not understanding cocktails
Yeah.
and mixers. So no, I don't think tequila is going to take India by storm.
Yeah.
I think right now we're seeing it a lot but you have to also realize that all food trends and especially spirit trends have been cyclical for ages because there's only that much you can do. So if you actually remember any stories about your grandparents or great grandparents, they were all drinking gin martinis in Old Bombay.
Okay.
Right? It was a big thing.
Yeah.
Then vodka came in,
Yeah.
and then it was whiskey back again. And this happens, and that's why House of Brands allows you to ride these waves
Yeah.
to be that relevant brand.
Yeah.
Because at any point in what is like say India's $38 billion, this is non-wine, non-beer.
Yeah.
There's always somebody, especially if you're a cocktail. Now India is actually moving to cocktails
Okay.
for the first time. Cocktails are essentially mixed drinks, right? So
Yeah.
you're not actually having just a tequila or just a gin. At some point you'll have both.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to provide quality spirit with great brands that
Yeah.
do that, and hopefully great bars that will do that. And
Yeah. Speaking about cocktails and mixologists, let's talk about Countertop.
yeah.
What is the story behind it? I know you all curate menus. You're Bandra born, and there's a restaurant called Bandra born, and I really, really like it. And I know you guys have
It's really
curated.
good. And
Yeah.
chef's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the story? And also, I'm Bangalore born, and we have I think Bar Spirit Forward, which you've done the curation for as well.
Yes, that was a countertop bar.
Yeah. So what's the story behind Countertop? How did it start, and what's the goal with it?
So essentially, before we decided to take on Countertop, they
Yeah.
had the team there had built one of India's best bars, and I still think till today it's one of.
This was Tesoro.
Sometimes space just just click, right?
Yeah.
It's difficult to put a finger on it.
Yeah.
Something works.
Pankaj at Tesoro.
Pankaj.
Yeah, I remember. I've had.
And so, for whatever reason, this road didn't work out for them.
Yeah.
So we were like, hey, can we replicate this, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of our idea was that, hey, we're building all these brands, we want to be able to put it into menus that appreciate it and sell it, and that will go on for some time. Also, I think India was waking up to cocktails and wanting cooler spaces and wanting to see what they've seen when they go abroad and come back, and I think India could have its own answer to that.
Yeah.
Which is the same vision that I think he shared with us. And I think since then, so it's basically a bar and beverage consultancy in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So if you're a brand wanting to come into India, or if you're somebody who has a bar or wants to set up a bar, we do that space for you.
Okay.
So from designing your menu to curating the space, this was given to us as an open space.
Yeah.
And then this has become the Countertop Lab. And so the rigs at the Taj, we have a Taj contract, we just redid that.
Yeah.
So we'll either upskill a bar or create the bar for you.
Yeah.
And say Bushmills, which is this really popular Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
We have the contract. Plantation rum that we bring in.
Yeah.
The contract is with Countertop to promote it because it makes sense. So the idea is that they will sort of, in layman's terms, build kick-ass bars with great experiences and build fantastic menus with great brands. So that's very good. I should use that. I haven't said that before.
I mean, I really love some of the bars, and I think it's so nice because even with the House of Brands concept, you touched upon like the idea that everything's cyclical. It's almost like fashion, right? Like so, it's good to sort of accelerate on the brands which are doing well according to the tastes of the consumers of the time, and then decelerate maybe on the brands which are not going through the.
But that's not a process, See, in India it's so wide, and the rest of the world is so wide.
Yeah.
If something accelerating or decelerating somewhere else, if your market is wide enough, it'll pick it up from some. It's not. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like to give you a classic example, like if you go out, say, drinking in Hyderabad, you're not seeing the same kind of tequila consumption as you are, say, with beer and whiskey still.
Fair enough.
right?
Yeah.
You're seeing that maybe here in Bombay, Goa also to a large extent is really not drinking that much tequila than South Delhi and South Bombay are,
Okay.
and parts of Bangalore.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fair enough.
But whiskey is king. Sits on 68% of that market.
Do you think that
India-
will ever change?
I don't think so, man.
No?
It's so weird.
Yeah?
You know, we're a hot country
Yeah.
full of hairy men
Yeah.
who drink whiskey in the day.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like, why do that?
Is it a...
You know, that was my gin and tonic sales pitch at one point. It's so hot. Why are you doing this, man?
Yeah.
Like, he was built in a cold country for a reason, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think so, man. I think whiskey has such a root on Indian taste palates, and it's such a done thing to drink whiskey that it'll be tough for a category to break it.
Is it a price point issue, you think?
At some level, yeah, I don't disagree with you because whiskey is available at every price. At every 500 rupees,
Yeah.
you'll find a whiskey offering.
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
is not for the same thing.
Yeah.
So you can be any consumer looking for anything, whether it's single malt, whether it's mixed, whether it's Indian, whether it's foreign, whether it's all there.
Yeah.
And we are a very large whiskey consumer globally. Which again makes no sense for a warm country.
I mean, I remember for the longest time in duty frees that even still today, I think that's one of the largest stock like liquor category, right? You have all kinds of...
But even now,
yeah, even now.
anybody coming from the airport,
No.
you almost automatically gravitate towards, you'll buy one tequila now.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Only 1942 Cristalino or whatever, like
Yeah.
something
Casa-
like that. Yeah, Casa
yeah.
Amigos, one of them. Class Azul, ring
yeah.
the bell.
Yeah.
Or you'll go but you buy one, somebody will be like, you know, like a good single malt, or there's like one like added to the cupboard because somebody's going to drink it.
Yeah.
But even if you noticed your home cabinet,
Yeah.
see how quickly your whiskey depletes versus anything else till today. You're always replacing a whiskey bottle.
Yeah. Fair
Nothing
enough.
else, yeah.
Do you think I heard this in a podcast recently as well, and I see it a little bit more as well, but Gen Z apparently all around the world is drinking a lot less than the...
So yeah, Gen Z whole health fad.
Yeah.
It's not a fad, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Be healthy. Don't do this. But that might be true for developing countries, and that's sweet of them to say, but India, you know, growing at 16% CAGR, I think a lot of people are looking at how they drink and how they socially interact.
Yeah.
It's obviously a very integral part of everyone's social fabric, and that's why what you drink and what you're drinking is so important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know whether it's going to last or not, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's a good or bad thing. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think people find the market is still way too large
Yeah.
globally for anyone to be bothered, and I think it's good that you're not seeing people quit drinking, but you're seeing people being smart about their drinking, which is a good thing to do.
Fair enough.
And you want to be that drink of choice where you're like, shit, I'm going to drink something good.
Yeah.
If I'm going to have, it's like a dessert, right?
Yeah.
This is going to start becoming like a cheat meal for them, I guess.
So this is actually going to be one of the follow-up questions, but you kind of rubbed upon it. There was a stat that I read that premiumization, like the market share of premium alcohol is gone up from like I think 42% to 49%. Do you think in terms of absolute, it's compensating for volume? Like volumes are reducing but value is increasing, or both are increasing? And how do you feel like this premiumization story in alcohol is playing out not only in India, but like this India to the world kind of category as well?
One, I think India is a disposable income thing.
Yeah.
Which you being an investor would have been tired of hearing, like 1.6 billion people, everybody making more money than
Yeah.
But that's relatively true when it comes to booze, that people are now in the information age, like can teach themselves about better booze and have that when they're having it, and I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
I think internationally, again, I think India as a brand is finally changing how people, for someone who's lived abroad as much as I have, like people are changing the way they look at us. We were
Fair
not
enough.
we were not an how do I put this? We were not an important group of people
Yeah.
at a restaurant or bar
Yeah.
before. We are now.
Fair enough.
Because we're spending more money than
Yeah.
we have. Like say Europe, you see everyone, for example, like initially, like you will have memories where you were scoffed off because
Yeah.
and that doesn't happen anymore. Now they're like, oh, please sit. It's
Yeah.
like, what happened?
Yeah.
It's like, and I think that's where we're doing well. I think finally, the entire country is changing its brand, which is
Yeah.
important. Right? We're not somebody that just whips cows and goes to school on elephants anymore. We're running billion-dollar
We never
businesses.
were though, like, but that
We
was the
were.
stereotype.
We were.
Yeah.
We're still a great farming. But
Yeah.
have you met our farmers recently? Shit, man, they're coming out of like BMW i7s, like, in their dhoti, representing, man, to watch what's happening, to even. I think the way we're addressing ourselves internationally is changing, and the way we are looking at ourselves consumption wise is changing. It's now even screw booze that I'm talking about. Like even now, you're very happy to find a clothing brand
Yeah.
that comes from India, and you'd
Yeah.
happily wear it, right? And it's
Absolutely.
cool. 10 years ago, no chance. You'd go to a Marks and Spencer store and buy a T-shirt, right?
Yeah.
And not So, I think
India's becoming sexy.
India is becoming sexy.
Yeah.
Indians are becoming
Yeah,
sexy.
Indians are becoming
Which
sexy.
is great, thank
Yeah.
God.
Finally.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that it has not. It would be silly for me to say that the brand had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I think was relevant to doing that,
Yeah.
and I think aided that process.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, if I'm at a bar
Yeah.
wearing a cool Indian brand, looking sexy,
Yeah.
I might as well order a Stranger and Sons because it fits my bill.
It does.
And yeah,
Bandra
and-
boy.
Yeah, Bandra boy. Yeah. And if I have a beard,
Yeah.
and if I'm reading Murakami,
Yeah.
Japanese as like, it's good.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Japan, crazy.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually read, you guys won in 2020, actually, International Wine and Spirit Competition. You won the gold medal.
Yeah,
Um,
that IWSC
yeah.
double goal
Yeah.
is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And apparently it's like so. Movie stars have the Oscars.
Yeah.
We have this.
Okay.
And I think we were one of the first Indian white spirits. So don't quote me on that, but I think one of them to get that,
Yeah.
and it was insane. It was insane to be recognized. It goes through this like rigorous tasting process and countries and all
Yeah.
this jazz, and it was really cool. And only 8 gins in the world.
Yeah, I read that as well. One of
Yeah.
800 companies and one of 8 gins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty global ass
Yeah.
recognition.
So what does something like that do for you? Like, does it add a lot of relevance and like suddenly is that like sort of your viral moment in the world?
No, I don't think the consumer cares.
Yeah.
I don't think the consumer cares as much. I don't think the Indian consumer cares. I
Yeah.
think the British consumer does, or like
Yeah.
the different places where you can use the sticker in supermarkets
Yeah.
and it's easier to sell.
Yeah.
But I think it's great validation for the team and everyone working behind the brand to be like globally recognized is it's good. I can't deny it.
Yeah.
Happy about it, but
Fair.
yeah, and also I think the entire team is such that we just don't get caught up in these kinds of accolades. People like your product. PNL is working great.
Yeah.
Focus is there.
Yeah.
Like for me at least. Good. Awards will come, they'll go.
Do you see that today, like, of course, Stranger and Sons is a name almost become like, at least in urban cities, a household name. What are some of your like top markets right now in India and outside India? And where do you see that going?
So Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Delhi,
Yeah.
Gurgaon, Haryana
Yeah.
are our biggest Indian markets and will be our top markets. We're now going to move into the next section.
Yeah.
After this fundraise, and then internationally, Taiwan, Thailand,
Yeah.
Singapore, Dubai, London
Okay.
are our mainstay markets, of which Thailand, Taiwan, and the UK are the the three that takes even from them our most focus. We just got the Dishum contract in the UK.
Yeah, I've been to the
Uh,
show, yeah.
Yeah, we got all 18 Dishums,
Okay,
which
wow.
is crazy.
Yeah,
It's really awesome to be on the Dishum
yeah.
menu.
What does it mean to get on a menu in a restaurant like, say, Dishum? Is it just to
Yeah,
get like,
basically, it's like you're competing with a bunch of brands to take that much. It's like a supermarket.
yeah,
Like, don't look at a restaurant for us any differently than you look at a shelf space.
okay,
Menu space is shelf space, right?
okay,
And so there are many brands vying for the same space.
yeah,
Is it you're offering your price point, your storytelling, your team
yeah,
that can deliver a better experience to the customer.
yeah,
And I think that's where. But it was awesome for Dishum to put us in all 18 outlets. It took us a while.
yeah,
Um, and now we're their mainstay Indian. It's an Indian restaurant, so I guess it makes sense.
yeah,
But it was nice that you'll go to a Dishum and go to the Savoy, and you can still find a
yeah,
Stranger Sunset. So it's not. I don't want to be I don't ever want to be for any of our brands, including something like Swami that has the name Swami in it.
yeah.
Be typecasted as
A certain category, yeah.
turban. Someone will shake their head and be like, "Welcome."
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, like we don't do that. We
Yeah.
do shake our head a lot though. That's true.
With this, you mentioned rising disposable income, right? So there's, I was doing before our chat, I was actually doing some research. Also, I studied econ, right? So it's interesting for me to see
Really?
certain categories.
So did I.
Yeah?
What a waste
Of time.
of time.
No, it wasn't.
Thank you. Shit.
But it's so interesting to see, as this disposable income's rising, you also see trends changing, right? So it's funny, right? There was a stat that I saw. In 2014, like the GDP per capita, which is, the amount of money per family or like per individual sort of makes, was about $1,560. And 10 years later, in 2024, it's actually closer to $2,500, which in India is a big jump, right? Like, huh?
Bound to be.
Yeah, bound to be. So, how do you see with this sort of next wave of, as this
Still compared to the American GDP per capita.
I mean, that's, yeah, of course not. But like where the GDP per capita, I think absolute population is much higher, right? So, volume is where we play at.
Still.
Yeah. But what do you think?
Compared to the Chinese GDP, which I'll give you that.
Yeah.
So I'm answering the question.
Yeah.
But go on.
But so basically, I just want to see, like, with your sort of strategy of house of brands, what is the next level of growth, or even in Stranger, or even in Swami? Like, where do you see this next wave of growth taking us? At least in AlcoBev in general, if you had to do a category.
I think people are going to become more discerning about what they drink.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're getting prepared for.
Yeah.
I think they're going to get more excited about brands that come from India. And I think Indian brands will also improve the front they put forward. So even if you're seeing like older Indian brands, you're seeing them having, better packaging and cooler products coming out, and that everyone's doing it. I believe in the India story a lot.
Yeah.
I do think that we have this country that's so weirdly poised, like relatively like English speaking nation.
Yeah.
People have a good sense of education.
Yeah.
They apply themselves quite well at every level of society.
Yeah. Hardworking population.
And you're seeing some of the drain also sometimes come back from the US every now and then, or from foreign countries. It will be like people are coming. I was one of them, right? Came back to set up a business here.
Yeah.
And so we're launching our whiskey now
Okay.
by next month.
Okay.
We have a dark rum coming.
Yeah.
We have a new vodka in the works.
Yeah.
We have like every category of products. Swami is going to do multiple products again now.
Yeah.
And the entire range is going to expand. Hopefully, Countertop will have 4 more bars by next year in every city in the country. And that's hopefully we stay relevant and discerning for a prosperous India, which I hope is countrywide.
Do you feel like in this sort of, you're in like heavy growth, like acceleration mode, where, you're launching so many new things in the next,
Yeah, I'm a startup with
yeah.
you as an investor. I gotta run, man.
How do you keep up with it all? And I actually want to know more of this from the perspective that, say, AlcoBev, right, and even like, say, Countertop, and just the food and beverage industry is such an active like lifestyle, right? Like, it's like you're always at places. Is it the norm? Like, I don't know, but like, are you always at parties? At least that's what you assume, right? Like, it's a very,
No, it's a
yeah.
correct assumption.
Yeah. So how do you keep up with it, and like, how do you balance that out with the rest of your life? Like, eating and like fitness and stuff like that. What relevance does it have? Like, how do you travel a lot? Like, you live between Goa and Bombay right now. So how does that work for you?
No, you have to be extremely conscious of what you're doing. I think initially when we were younger,
You're very young.
it was easier, I think,
Yeah.
to manage, but you start seeing the toll it can take.
Yeah.
You're doing very, very long hours. Yes, you are at some point reaching to events,
Yeah.
not as much anymore. The pressures will constantly change, but I think that's true for anybody. I don't think it's especially true for us.
Yeah.
I think it's a little more fun,
Yeah.
which definitely is going to like a finance conference to be like, hey, let's go hit a couple of bars.
Yeah.
But and you have to be like, I have like like what I eat if I'm drinking will
Yeah.
change because I see it in my sugar. I divide that like my workout profile obviously like goes up and down a lot, but I've always been very into it, so it's very easy for me to come back, do some
Yeah.
runs, get my couple of hours in, and I think that'll keep you as long as you're staying sort of, I think, relatively hydrated, sleeping, which is the biggest problem is how much you get to go to bed.
Yeah.
If it doesn't tell on my face,
I couldn't tell.
it doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
And get some exercise in the day. You're
Yeah.
usually good. I think a lot of people in general today are eating better,
Yeah.
like very conscious about what they're eating. There's a lot of knowledge about, like, even as kids, like I didn't ever differentiate protein versus carb versus
Yeah.
thing.
Do you think that's a generational thing? Or like, just you're bombarded with so much knowledge,
Yeah,
that's
I
why.
think that's, I mean, when I was at my peak fitness,
Yeah.
I was really not thinking about
Okay.
how my macros are being divided. Like, it was
Fair
not a
enough.
thing.
Yeah.
So, like, there's some protein there, there's some carb there, jiga. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like,
So, we were talking about like the lifestyle of, being an AlcoBev, and then how do you balance your, regular life with it, like fitness and all of these things. Now let's talk about your lifestyle as an entrepreneur. You'd mentioned earlier on, like, with your first few bottles, like in Thailand, you were going around with like, bottles in your backpack and going bar to bar. What was that like initially when, no one knew Stranger and Sons? Like, how were those early days?
I mean, if you look back at it now, in hindsight, it was actually the more fun
Yeah.
days where I guess you had a lot more to prove. I think businesses now will, like, obviously, our ambitions have been set higher, but it changes a lot. But the initial days, the excitement of the growth is always amazing, right? Like you're suddenly on a tissue paper one day you wrote down a concept, and then now you're flying to 4 countries to try and get that distribution right. I think you also feel kind of lucky to have the opportunity to do it, and that you had so many people along the way. I think we're hiring around 100 people globally now, to have that actually happen for you and to be able to sustain it. I don't think it's easy. I think it's been a lot of hours, but I don't think it's any different from anybody that does anything that they like doing, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's work as much, but um, yeah, sometimes like I miss being in the distillery and
Yeah.
like hanging out and fixing cocktails, and I don't get to do that anymore. Which was the fun part. I think then you did everything yourself. You made a poster, you made the bottle,
Yeah.
you like booked your own flight.
Yeah.
Like none of that is happening right now.
Yeah.
in a nice way. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you were
You've seen success and the team's grown, and I'm sure you have allocated responsibility for
So
that.
from
Yeah.
like going to the printer to picking up the sunboard to
Yeah.
flying it from London to Berlin and like saying excuse. I sat with a sunboard on a
Yeah.
flight from London to Berlin because we had two events back to back in both countries,
Yeah.
and we were too late to make it for the flight to check in.
Yeah.
So me and like somebody from my team, we just sat with a sunboard on our lap
Yeah.
for an hour and a half.
I don't know who was sitting next to you, but I feel really bad for
Yeah,
them.
it's not fun for him. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
like, because you couldn't fit it into the
Overhead
yeah,
compartment. Yeah.
it's pretty shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think these are the stories that help you even backtrack and realize that this is what you've done to. You know, I think it's very simple for everyone in their journeys to make
Yeah.
make stories about where you are now. But
Yeah.
it's important to know that this is how it actually
Started.
it started from us bolting pipes together to printing the first sunboard. To
Yeah.
I was on mic for the first event because physically, but our first London event, I had to become a character because we lost an actor. So I was like this tour guide that
Yeah.
we need to be there. It was like
Yeah.
hustling them from India to
Yeah.
like start them from. We had booked an 18th century jail.
Yeah.
Go through and I was doing the entire first act, and I was
Yeah.
like, I can't do this. Then I had a lot of fun doing it with 10
Yeah.
different people, but you know, but I think that's the difference between anything. I think it's hands-on.
Yeah.
It's like brass tacks. I think ambitions change as companies formalize,
Yeah.
and it's good for us to be here.
Yeah.
But I still don't sleep at all.
How much sleep do you get?
Like 4 to 5 hours at best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to change that, or are you
Yes.
trying to change that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want more days off. I think it's important for entrepreneurs to do that. And I
Yeah.
think between the three of us, we're doing it a lot more now.
Yeah.
But for 3 years, I guess we were just.
Yeah. How do you spend, like, since, going back to the earlier question where, it seems like such a party lifestyle outside, right? But like when you get into the nitty
No,
gritties
it's
of
very
it,
different. You're facilitating the party.
Yeah.
You have to know that you are the reason.
Yeah.
So, like at one point, like I have DJ friends, and
Yeah.
my schedules were not very different.
Yeah.
You know.
Fair enough.
Now they are.
Yeah.
Because they still have to be behind the console, and I do not.
Yeah.
Which is good, but you're not essentially partaking, but yes, you have the ability that you are there to make everybody else have a good time.
Yeah.
And that has to go on well. If the bar is not running smoothly,
Yeah.
if it's clogged at the line,
Yeah.
if people are waiting for their drinks, they're not going to have the same experience that they
Yeah.
would have had otherwise. And that responsibility you take seriously. But as a product supplier,
Yeah.
actually, not even that. That's not actually my job.
Yeah.
That's Countertop's job. Good for
Yeah.
them. But as a product supplier, you want to make sure that there's the best quality product available on
Yeah.
time, so that they can supply the same drink
No, absolutely.
going forward. This cocktail is great, by the way. I'm just gonna drink them.
Since, like you just mentioned that, like, you're facilitating the party. So, that's your active, like, work life. So then how does that sort of shape what does downtime look like for you? Because you also travel, like you live between Bombay and Goa, right? So
Yeah.
how do you keep up with your friends? Do you have childhood friends? Like, how does that, like, how your relationships, like, affected
I've
by?
been very lucky to
Yeah.
have, it's the one thing I say all the time, to have a great community around me.
Okay.
All my friends have been there for very, very long. They're all from various countries. They're all very close.
Yeah.
And I'm actually having trouble. Like, I love maintaining those relationships, but
Yeah.
it's crazy how lucky I've been with people. It's just, that's one of my things.
Yeah.
I've moved many schools and
Yeah.
and moved countries, and I've always had. I'm still in touch with almost everybody from every school, from every place. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I got like super lucky with like investors, business partners, like
Yeah.
everybody, like the whole community around me is the luckiest thing that I've had is
Yeah.
I've had really good people, and I'm very, very grateful for that always. It's like my biggest the only thing that keeps me going.
And-
Then my village is great. Happy Panchayat.
And do you think that sort of, having this sort of, going through different schools, having these like great relationships with people, who you've still been in touch with, has shaped your journey as an entrepreneur as well?
100%. Our first few clients, our first few suppliers, my lawyer today
Yeah.
are all people like, as a joke, like one of the chefs are like, oh, Vidur should be put in jail because like it's too much party. And literally she was like, oh, my job is to keep him out of jail, so thank you very much. I mean, how sweet. But what a sweet line for a lawyer to make on an average
Absolutely,
dinner. As much as it's a very on the nose joke. But yeah, it's been. I actually forgot.
No, it was basically how that's sort of shaped your journey as an entrepreneur, like have these personal relationships.
So I think a lot of
Yeah.
coming back to that, I think
Yeah.
our first suppliers, support systems,
Yeah.
advice. A lot of people from different countries.
Yeah.
Some of my first orders internationally have all come through people that have done it because
Yeah.
you maintain a relationship, and
Yeah.
I constantly tell everybody it costs you nothing to not be an.
Yeah.
Just as long as you run that concept. But yeah, I think I've been extremely lucky with people. I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of people around me have the same
Yeah.
same outlook on human beings.
No, fair enough.
But yeah, it's I see entrepreneurship, anything until AI takes over and kills us all, is it's true. Is very much always going to be a people's product, right?
Yeah.
The people running your factory, the people running your marketing departments,
Yeah.
the people you work with,
Yeah.
the people who are your investors who decide like. And if you don't recognize that,
Yeah.
especially here with alcohol, where you're
Yeah.
hanging out, the whole idea is to bring people together.
Yeah.
I think for anybody,
Yeah. Just touching
it's
on this
the most
AI
important
question.
skill. Yeah.
Since it's so people centric, like, at the end of the day, you can say AI will replace a lot of jobs or it'll make a lot of jobs more efficient.
Only Utkarsh.
Do you think, but AI is not, like, at the end of the day, you're still, alcohol's a people's product, right? Like, it's not like.
It is.
Yeah. So do you
All
think.
products are people products. That's who's consuming it.
Yeah. But like, do you think that in this industry specifically, more than just as a joke, do you think AI will have a role to play?
No, I think we are AI proof. To a large extent, is because you have to consume that drink.
Yeah.
So yeah, at best, you'll have a machine that can make you a cocktail. But that's never going to be the same for humans to be out at a. There's something drawing about being out at a bar with people, even if you fundamentally don't like humans.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's okay. There's something intriguing about, or something comforting sometimes about going out to a bar.
Yeah.
Just to be around people. You don't necessarily want to drink.
Yeah.
But you don't mind like hearing the hustle bustle every now and then, right?
No, and also I think that's what separates, you can do a straight drink at home, right? Like it's, it's the whole idea of going out for a drink.
Yes, and the best part is I don't think for a long time, even if we get to ASI and all of us are doomed, that the machine will print a drink.
Yeah.
So till then we're good. I think we're very. I think we adhere to a very fundamental nature of us having to connect with people.
Yeah.
And we will create those platforms.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for AI to take that away.
Yeah.
If I was a lawyer or a teacher or a writer right now, I'd be kind of concerned. But like, thank God I'm none of those things. So it's good.
How do you think, you mentioned that you've been so lucky with your relationships and being in touch with people. If someone, say today, a new person like is entering this industry, and since it is such a small industry and they have no contacts, they just today decided to quit their job and start an alcohol.
I was that.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's
how did you do it then?
Just, I'm trying to find the word for it. Like just, you were almost an idiot is the only way to put it in the most serious fashion.
Yeah.
Like there was no, we didn't believe that the market was going to have a barrier that's going to throw us out.
Yeah.
I think for anybody that wants to do anything, you can't think about what is already there. It'll kill you. I think this is the simplest way to put. There's too many words to put it, but yeah, there was a lot of aggression and a lot of energy at that point, and
Yeah.
very still there.
Yeah.
It's just slightly more sophisticated,
Directed towards other
less
things.
fox. Yeah, yeah.
What is that like the advice that you would give to any startup entrepreneur in AlcoBev today?
No, I think the only advice. This is a question that gets asked
Yeah, I'm
so
sure.
often, right?
Yeah.
It's but I think two things. You want to do something, be super convicted. Have both feet in.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Two, it hurts. Like there's no two ways around it. For anybody going through it's painful, right? You will take the punches, you will take the successes, but successes come very rarely.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a madman's journey for sure.
Yeah.
There's a high amount of risk involved,
Yeah.
depending on what you want to do, and you have to be okay with doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think one, everything doesn't have to happen tomorrow,
Yeah.
which a lot of people do, which was my learning. Everything doesn't have to happen now,
Yeah.
and that's okay. You will still survive. And the second thing is that conviction over everything. Like if you yourself cannot convince the rest,
Yeah.
the rest will never be convinced,
Yeah.
and therefore you will not have value.
Do you feel like now, having been in alcohol for 5 years, or a little longer than that, whatever, 2018
Not
was
even 5, just about.
just about 5. Okay.
We're a young ass company, man.
Yeah.
I remember like how I had Stranger and Sons 10 years ago. I was like, no, you didn't. There's no fucking way. I was barely of drinking age 10 years ago. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man. Like,
Yeah. Do you enjoy? It's like, a fallacy of knowledge, right? When you know too much about something, you tend to overcomplicate things. So tell me about, like, say, going out today to a restaurant or a bar. How does that experience look like to you today?
it's
Now,
very different.
yeah,
It's very different, and it's very difficult to keep your mouth shut.
yeah,
But I'm now, when you get older,
yeah,
and do you remember the moment where you didn't have to argue with someone to prove them wrong?
yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
That's what happens now.
yeah,
Somebody gives you a drink, it's shit. Thank you so much. Can I get another drink?
Yeah.
That's simple.
yeah.
Game. I think before that, you'd now I always ask, hey, do you want to? But you're always over analyzing everything. It's like
It's like if I go see someone's apartment today, or like I see an apartment building, more than just like, oh, how you've
like
done
you
the
could have got more FSI, bitch. What a little tweet.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're analyzing the height of the space, or like, how the toilets are placed, and all of these things, which, makes you appreciate, or not even appreciate, it makes you overly critical of certain
No,
things.
it makes you a douche.
Yeah.
I mean that
No, I
the same
understand.
way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If I keep every time I tell somebody that hey, your drink's shit,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
going to work well.
Yeah.
Also, everyone's trying. Also, somebody else might like that.
No, absolutely. It's very subjective.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same thing with space. Space
Yeah.
is definite.
I mean, when you're in the business versus when you're a consumer, the ideas, the thought process is different, right?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I would have a mattress on the floor, dude. I'm that kind of guy. I give for prongs about where I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I want to now dive into actually a topic which we've discussed in some of our calls earlier on, I remember. But I think is such an important topic going forward, especially as, experiences, and it's like a human thing, right? And is ESG. It's very big in my sector now. Like, everything in real estate revolves around ESG. How do you, and like, being more environmentally friendly, carbon positive, not even carbon neutral, carbon positivity is a big thing.
Yeah.
I went to Lake Como for this climate conference, and you really see like the depth of how much of a problem the world is in. So how do you think, what is, okay, at least maybe a Third Eye or Stranger, what we're doing to sort of, what you're doing to kind of help with that, or as, and even more larger than that, like as an industry as a whole, where do you see this going, like sustainability in something like this?
I think it's impossible for you as a modern day company to not be conscious of your environmental footprint, and I think both me and Sakshi were in impact investing before we joined. So we are very aware of how, like um, the back end of the business works,
Yeah.
how sustainability works, and how much trouble we're in and how we can get there. I started my career also running an impact investing initiative for 2 years. So I think at least at Third Eye, for whatever, I think it's very difficult as a startup to be to say that you're completely sustainable. It's a very difficult thing for someone to say.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to someone to live with, but
Measure.
you can try
Yeah.
your best, and I
Yeah.
think we do that a lot.
Yeah.
Whether how we're very conscious about the water we use, we're very conscious about our food waste. We recycle some of it. We send some to self-help groups. We do all of that. We're very conscious about like
Yeah.
sort of like social impact of what it's doing.
Yeah.
As much as we can. We do, however, constantly believe that we will take steps to. It's a very clear thing in our repertoire. Especially, obviously we use glass, which is better than using plastic.
Yeah.
Um,
Does the glass come back?
No, in India it can't come
It
back,
can't?
but there are ways to bring it back. So there are now companies that do bring it back, they do mash it, or they'll offset your waste.
Okay.
So we're having a lot of those conversations.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think consumers who don't ask the question, and in India it doesn't happen, say maybe as much as the West, but I think it is integrally important for everyone across the board to do it.
Yeah.
There is no two questions about it. Whether your company can afford it, then please do it. If it can't, and you're getting there, find ways to do it. But so we at that level, I hear we have sort of electric stills, and we have very low water consumption for what we do, and we try at every level to see where you can snip your impact for sure.
Yeah.
As an industry as a whole, I don't think I can comment. I think everyone's trying their best wherever they are.
Do you see this? India has traditionally been, or the east of the world, I think, has always been a west to east kind of governed taste-wise, trend-wise. Do you now see this transformation from east to west?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in
Look,
alcohol,
chicken tikka masala is the most eaten snack in the UK. Like it's not even Indian.
it's a national dish.
It was made in Newcastle.
Yeah.
It's a party dish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you see that playing out in alcohol?
I think Indian brands in general all over will gain relevance for quality.
Yeah.
I think the mark of quality, like how we used to shrug off like made in China.
Yeah.
I think that will stop for made in India.
Okay.
For anything, whether it's steel, whether it's clothes, whether it's brands that you should consume.
Yeah.
I think the more we develop, I think you'll get the right kind of person, but also our quality and goods will constantly increase, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's China Plus One or our brands right now just being integral for great quality stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the other day, it's a really interesting story. I was in Ladakh, in Leh.
Yeah.
When this super cool Pashmina company, they do nothing else, right? Talking about Ladakhi Pashmina.
Yeah.
Why it's how they grow it, what they do, why it's cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, after a long time at a store in India in the middle of nowhere, enthralled by a product that I know about, right? But and shit was expensive, dude.
Yeah.
So you're like, but I was willing to pay, convinced, top dollar, right? I was, the place looked beautiful.
Yeah.
The people knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, the pieces are like so well crafted, all that shit. But it's true, and we will create more products like that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a wave of people that, whether you're building a beautiful condominium or like a bottle, I think India will constantly, at the rate we're
But
going.
I just want to know, in this idea of, now that you said Leh, going back to this traveling context though, right? It's not only the West that I feel that when they come to, like Westerners, when they come to India, they need to know how to travel, or it's like different kind of travel compared to when you're going to Switzerland. But like, say...
Yeah, for someone from Beijing, it's torture.
For, even for me, right? Like, I feel like now there's so much of India that I haven't seen, but there's so much of India to see. So when you were talking about your Leh example, it's so funny that, I went to Leh in April to see snow leopards.
Yeah. Did you go to Ule?
I went to Lungma Valley.
Yeah, Ule.
Yeah. So
Yeah. How was it? That's what I was supposed to do. It's supposed to be
extraordinary
amazing.
experience.
Did you see some?
I saw 5.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was like really, really amazing. But like, those are things you don't expect. Like, you think all the exotic wildlife is in Africa, or there's so many other countries in the world where but you forget to see what you have internally
This
sometimes.
is such a point of contention for me. Like I'll meet some people from various parts of the country that have been to Masai Mara
Yeah,
before they've been to some of our best forest reserves. And I've been making a point now to take all my trips to parts of India that I haven't seen,
yeah,
and they're they're all stunning.
yeah,
Especially our forest and wildlife
yeah,
is. I mean, I'm a big
yeah,
like animal forest
yeah.
guy. I mean, I love it. I know a lot of people, it's not their cup of tea. I'm
No.
very happy staying in the middle of wilderness. Why I like go out a little bit.
Yeah,
But it's awesome, man. Like we have so much to offer.
yeah,
It is crazy. I'm actually quite well traveled within India as well. I want to do all states
yeah,
in the next couple of years, and I've been making a point
yeah.
to go to every major city, just
Yeah.
hang out there, like just see what the pulse is, what's happening, and everything is changing so fast here, man.
Yeah.
Like
I'm just looking at the notes, and I think, we're done with everything. So thanks so much, Vidur, for
Right.
coming
Can we
and
get some
sharing.
shots, please?